Africa being an accurate description of the regions of Egypt, Barbary, Libya, and Belladulagrid, the land of Negroes, Guinea, Ethiopia, and the Abyssinians, with all the adjacent islands either in the Mediterranean, Atlantic, Southern, or Oriental Sea belonging thereunto, with the several denominations of their coasts, harbors, creeks, rivers, lakes, cities, towns, castles, and villages, their customs, modes, and manners, languages, religions, and inexhaustible treasures, with their governments and policy, variety of trade and barter, and also of their wonderful plants, beasts, birds, and serpents. Collected and translated from most authentic authors. Published in London. Negroland, or the country of blacks. This country, spreading from the north to the south, that is, from the desert of Libya to the banks of the river Niger, is at this day with a general name called Negroland, or the country of the blacks, or Negroes, which Marmot placeth in nether Ethiopia, withal adding that the Arabians call it Beledla, a bead, and Beled Geneva. And the Africans of Barbary call it Geneva Sink and Nuba. All the inhabitants of this province were called by the ancients as Pliny, and the geographer Ptolemy, Ethiopian Negrites, or according to the orthography of Dionysius in his book of the situation of the earth, called them Negretes, as some have called them in Greek, Melanis, which as a former name signifies blacks, perhaps derived from the color of the inhabitants or nature of the soil, and because of the deserts which spread from the mountain Atlas to the river de Niger, or else because Niger casts up a black or duskish sediment, some rocks appearing amidst in the river, which seem as if burnt. The most will have it that the people have gotten their name from the river Niger, which moisteneth their country. However, others have it, yet some of the former reasons seem to have great appearance of probability. In this country are placed also Ptolemy's Ethiopian Agangineers, the Africans, or Gamphasantins, Perossers, Matterers, Tolkien Fanners, Nubians, Atlanticans, Garamantans, and other ancient people besides. This country has on the east for borders the Nile, on the west the Atlantic, on the north desert of Libya, on the south partly the Ethiopian Ocean, and partly the Abyssini or Prester John's country, which was Congo, being the old borders of Congo. There we go. And also the kingdom of Lavongo and other countries lying southward towards the equatorial line. In this country are many kingdoms and territories, partly to the inland and partly to the south along the sea coast. And the inland kingdoms, everyone having the denomination from its metropolitan, are Quillada, Guinea, Meli, and Tambu, which is Timbuktu. Tambu, which is Timbuktu, once again, Gago, Guber, Agades, Kano, Kassim, Zegzeg, Zanzara, Guangara, Burno, Gauga, Nubi, Beetle, Timium, Duama, Midra, Gorhan, Seaman, and the desert of Seth and Sol. The first 15 being kingdoms lie for the most part on the banks of the river Niger. The desert of Seth, through which the merchants of Gualada traveled to Cairo and Akher, Cairo, spelled with a K, It is a long way, yet commodious and without danger. The other as Beetle, Timian, Dama, Mija, and Gorham lie far eastward from the other. The dominions verging the coast, stretching from east to west, are the kingdom Zaniga, or the country of the Jalafs, the kingdom of the Berezines, the people Ariarios, and Falupos, the kingdom of Kasangas, or Kasamansi, the people Baramas, the Basigos, or Bigiobos, islands of the kingdom of Gutvale. These names are crazy. Biguba, Mandinga, Bina, Susa, Sierra Leone, Saray Lions, or Bomber, or the islands de los Idoles, the island of the idols. We don't want to go there. Bravas, all Guinea, with its territories, coasts, and kingdoms belonging thereto, as the territory of Bom, Sikon, and Quiligia. The kingdom of... That's not even fully in. The kingdom, it starts with a Q. The Green Coast, Tooth Coast, the Quaqua or Foul Coast, 5 or 6 Bands Coast, and the Golden Coast, with the kingdoms belonging to it. The kingdom of Arder, Ukami, Benin, Isago, Fabo, Odobo, Iftana, Gabo, Biafar, Ower, or Fakado, the territory of Carrion, Crike, Moko, Bani, the territory of the Absines, or the highland of Ambosis or Corisco, every one of which shall here following have their peculiar place. First, beginning with the most inland countries or center of all these vast dominions, but the greatest extent of Negroland from Cape Verde or Greenhead, being the most westerly point lying at the sea, to Tegel, a city in Libya, close by the Nile, reckons 855 German miles, or 750 degrees longitude, and accounts for its greatest breadth, being from the kingdom of Gualada to the Cape of Lopez Gonzalves, 380 miles and a half, or 25 degrees and a half. That is from the 320th degree and 30 minutes north latitude, taking from the kingdom of Gualada to the 2nd degree south latitude near the Cape of Lopez Gonzalves. Amongst all the rivers, which in great number cut through the country, the river Niger is the most eminent, which by the Arabians is now called Huid Nagar, and by some is taking Nagar, and by some is taken from the river Asana of Pliny, or Asanaga of Neuse. And also some hold Niger and Gambia to be one and the same river. And others will have it that Niger is the Rio Grande, or the Great River, both which opinions seem to have appearance of truth, because the chiefest geographers of this age hold Gambia and Zaniga to be 2 branches of the Niger. Yet some will have it that the Niger takes its original out of a lake eastward of the desert, so gliding from thence to the west, and in the Atlantic disturbs itself. But the Arabian and African geographers assert that Niger is a branch of the Nile, which running underground after a great distance shows his so long lost streams again. and that the Niger proceeds from the same head or fountain. They also affirm that from these evidences, first, that they both breed one and the same sorts of fish, especially the hippopotamus or seahorse, and overflow the ground, enriching the neighboring countries near the same time and in the same manner as the Nile. The ancients themselves, among whom Pliny make Nilus and Niger to be of one nature or quality, and added moreover that it produces reeds in the papyrine or paper plants as the Nile does, which Egyptians used to write on, as we on our own paper. The modern geographers make Niger to take its original out of a lake called the Black Lake, bordering on the kingdoms of Midra, Vank, and make it also serve for a boundary between the Abyssini or Prester John's country and Negroland. Afterwards, it cuts through the countries of Biafar and Nubia, diving about 18 miles underground, and at last appears again and makes the Great Lakes of Borno, lying upon the borders of 4 kingdoms. From thence it floweth through their realms: Guangara, Biafra, Kafina, Zegzag, and Kano, and makes another great lake called Sigisima or Sigifma or Guarda, which in the south moisten the kingdoms of Mandinga, Guber, and Gaugo, and in the north that of Kano and Agades, Gog and Agog. Gliding out of this lake, it runs to the west, then rushing towards the north, close by the kingdom of Timbuktu, Tambu. In the south, hard by Meli, spreads itself into a third ample lake, from thence branching into 4 rivers, near which, losing its own name, Niger, receives 4 new denominations, the first of which is called the River of St. John, which is in the Bay of Arguin Falls in the ocean, whose mouth makes the haven Tophia. The second, running direct west, which we have so often mentioned, is Zaniga. The third, gliding by degrees also west, is called Gambia. But the last branch of Niger parts instantly into 2 other branches, one of which is called Santo Domingo, and the other, which takes its course to the south, in Portuguese Rio Grande. Each of these branches boast of whole kingdoms bordering their banks, as Gibala and Biguba, according to the name of those rivers. Rio Grande, or the Great River, distinguishes itself from the other rivers in 11 degrees latitude, and after having dispatched 2 branches more from its own, which are called Guanala and Biguba, between the islands of Besegos, falls into the sea. Santo Domingo, otherwise called Jarum, is held by some for the immensest river of the whole coast, because of the abundance of slaves sold near its banks. It seems to be a branch of Rio Grande, which near the bay called Asteres Catarine ends its progress in the sea. Many of the other rivers gliding down the inland water the coast of Negroland and fall into the ocean. But of these, in their own particular place, as of the other rivers, being arms of Niger, as Zaniga and Gambia shall be treated of in the kingdom Zaniga, between which they are included. All these forementioned branches and sub-branches swell and overflow in the same manner and near the same time with the Nile. When the sun in their zenith enters Cancer, all the benefit of the Nile brings to Egypt the like accommodation of the Niger, with other rivers brings to Negroland. Niger, together with other rivers, beginning from the 15th of July, rises 40 days, and retreating as long, all which time till it draw within its circumscribed bounds. The lowlands, plains, and level country becomes a sea. All places covered with water, as in Egypt, where also during that time the travelers are rowed up and down in boats. The equal overflowing of this river with the Nile is not occasioned by the vicinity of the springs of those rivers belonging to the Nile, as the received opinion, but because their head fountains lie almost the same distance from the equinox, as we have declared at large. Concerning the temper of the air, condition of the soil, vegetatives, animals, and the constitution, modes and manners of the inhabitants, their riches, their policies and government, and several religions of the Negroes country in general, shall here briefly be declared as to what belongs to the materials of every kingdom, shall also in particulars be handled, but observe that their plants, beasts, men, and languages differ very much from neighboring countries under the equator. Though the temperature of the air and all the mutations thereof, as heat, cold, wind, and rain, are not unlike, but in a manner one and the same. By the overflowing of Niger, Zaniga, and Gambia, as also by the rains, Negroland is moistened and made exceedingly fruitful in all manners of terrain products, especially meal and rice, both being the chiefest bread corn of the inhabitants. The country is in some parts plain, in others hilly, but about the banks of the river Niger it is very level and watered by several standing pools left there by retreating river, which are planted about with shady groves, recesses for ravenous beasts and elephants. This dominion fosters not only tame but also wild beasts in great numbers. The natives are very black, but the features of their faces and their excellent teeth, being white as ivory, make up together a handsome air and taking comeliness of a new beauty. They are well limed and much addicted to Venus. Their languages are diverse. Gualada, Tambu, which is Timbuktu again, the inland, Guinea, Meli, and Gago, there are these use only one tongue called Sungai. But in the kingdom of Canaan, Kano, Kalsine, Zegzeg, Guangura, and Guber, they have another called Guber. And another in the kingdom of Borno, which is like that of Gauga. Likewise, those of Nubia have a peculiar speech of their own. A masculine of the Arabic, Chaldee, and some Coptic or Egyptian. Likewise, those of Nubia have a peculiar speech of their own. A masculine of the Arabic, Chaldee, some Coptic, and Egyptian. Besides, along the seacoast, their dialects differ every 3 or 4 miles distance. But on the coast of Guinea, are particular language, of which more hereafter. As for their government, some of them know none, neither ever scarce heard of any, but live in a confused ataxy, swayed on all occasions like tumultuous herds, and at other times like tame cattle feeding and following their idle pleasures. But the rest are all monarchical, living under laws, order, and princes. In the first place, the king, or rather emperor of Timbuktu, Tambu, to whom they pay tribute and acknowledge as their supreme ruler over their 15 kingdoms in the inland, as Gualada, Guinea, Meli, Tambu, Gago, Guber, Agadez, Kano, Kasina, Zegzeg, Zanzara, Guangura, Borno, Gaugo, and Nubia. Besides, the king of Borno reigns over another moiety. Acknowledging no superior, the rest of the inlands are subject to the Gaugos. But in times past, they were all absolute kings, doing homage nor what is that? Fealty to no other. So basically, they serve nobody. Also, the whole seacoast of Negroland from Cape de Verde to Lovango stands divided into several monarchies. The religion of the inland Negroes, most of them anciently worshipped one god called Guihime, that is Lord of Heaven. This persuasion of theirs not being inculcated by any priest who study rites and ceremonies, imposing a reverential awe on their disciples and proselytes, but instinct in the most in the meat hold on but instinct in the mere dictates of nature, which brings us soon to the acknowledgement of a deity. This they were instructed to the Mosaic laws. They were instructed in the Mosaic laws, the laws of Moses, which they long and zealously observed, till some of them, being converted to the Christian faith, wholly eclipsed the Jewish, then Christianity flourishing many years, till Mohammedanism at last overspreading all Asia and these parts of Africa. They, being still greedy of novelty, fell into apostasy, drinking in the poison of this new and dire infection, so that Christianity is in a manner extirpated. Some new professors of the gospel after the Coptic or Egyptian manner, yet remaining in Galgo. Those southern people that inhabit the coast from Cape de Verde to the kingdom of Lovango, sticking to their first tenets, are still all idolaters, as hereafter in particular shall be declared.